Yeah. Yep. There we go.
Hey, Bob.
Carlos,
Hey, what's up,
it's
boss?
Friday. Carlos, it's Friday. It's
It,
time to get
it's
rolling again.
Friday. It's
Yeah.
Hangout Friday.
This is double show week. We're catching up on some back issues here. So we got two episodes that are in the can.
Yeah, that's what we do sometimes.
Yeah, you know how it goes. That's how we
Do whatever
roll, brother.
we make it work one way or the other. We do whatever needs to be done.
Yeah,
I noticed you still have the belly button on the wall back there. What's up?
right there, man.
Is that a belly button or a wall nipple? What is that?
I'm trying to hold it. It's my secret wall safe. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just
Yeah, put your head in the way.
turn the combination right here like this. Yeah. I'm trying to do this. I'm going to sit like this so it doesn't bother anybody. And every once in a while I'll just go, ooh, look at that. Yeah. So I got my new desk here with my Cintiq sitting next to me. Let me spin that this way just a hair. There you go. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Nice. Sweet.
Yeah.
Let me see it again.
There you go. Right there. Whee. Yeah.
Nice.
That's where I do all the drawing these days. I used to do a lot of drawing on paper, but ever since I got that thing, man, whew, it's great. Now when I draw on paper, I try to zoom in on the paper. Did you ever do that?
It doesn't work.
No, it's not as good.
You gotta hold it closer to your face.
Yeah, that's the zoom. The zoom is this, yeah.
Yeah, but then it gets blurry.
Well, it's hard to work a pencil when you're getting that close. So, I've also got the dual pencil.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
So now you can draw like right-handed and left-handed.
I draw
You
like
can
this,
draw
man.
fast.
Yeah,
You can draw twice as fast now.
that's right, man. I draw with
Amazing.
both hands. Actually, I draw like this, two in one hand.
Wow, that's awesome. So you can put two in another hand and go four times as fast.
And I've got feet too, so I'm ready.
You are something else.
I'm trying to
Something
block
else,
it.
Mr. Oster. Hey, so what are we going to talk about, buddy?
Well, Carlos, you and I were talking just before the show, and you'd mentioned that we had an email that came in with a question on it, and the question had to deal with setting up the pricing thing and negotiating and that kind of stuff. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that today. That's one of those issues I think that everybody wants to learn a little something about, and I'm feeling like even I can learn something from that. So let's talk about that. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do that then.
All right.
So here's the scenario. We got an email. Someone said that they had spent some time with a potential client on the phone discussing an illustration project, and it's not just one illustration. It's just not, it can be several different things that the client might need.
Mm-hmm.
So they spent some time talking with the client, and they never really got around to discussing a ballpark figure that the client might have in mind, or even giving the client a ballpark figure after the conversation to kind of gauge, how much is too much, or what the client's okay with. So they're kind of in the predicament of writing out several proposal situations for this client they can go, and they're kind of nervous about presenting price now because it never came up in the conversation, or according to the email, he kind of really sidestepped the conversation because he really didn't want to open up that can of worms and kind of left it for later. So, so what are the pitfalls with not bringing up price in the conversation?
Yeah, right. So yeah, okay. Let's just review the scenario real quick here. So
Yeah.
so he got a call from a client. The client wanted a piece of art from him, or wanted to hire him to do a job, and they started to talk a little bit about the job, but he never got into negotiating price on the phone with the client. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. So the project isn't just one illustration. It turns out that there's several different things that the artist can do for the client.
Sure.
Aside from just one illustration. So the scope of the project is relatively larger than what he initially anticipated, and according to the client needs. But they never really got around to price, and it's usually because we got a good thing going, we got a client on the phone with a project,
Right.
and
Right.
we don't want to jeopardize it by by giving them a price they're not happy with, or even start talking about that. That's something really, really common among a lot of us when we're getting a project. If we haven't had a project in for a while, we've been slow we're hesitant to kind of jeopardize the project.
Right, you don't want to drop the ball.
Talking about price. Yeah, exactly. So, but this is the scenario now. He's wanting to create a proposal, but now he's nervous about the numbers. Because now he's like kind of shooting in the dark and doesn't really know what's going to be a good fit for this client.
Okay.
He didn't have the opportunity to take the opportunity to kind of gauge that up front. So what happens now is that most likely, and this is from personal experience and from talking to other artists that have been in this situation, most likely you'll enter into this proposal trying to come in as low as you can because now you're fearful of losing it because of the price.
Right.
And you just don't have a handle on it. So I mean that's the situation. I mean, so if you don't get a ballpark figure up front, you're going to be nervous about delivering a ballpark, your quote later because you're nervous that the client isn't going to see the value or you don't know where they're coming from. So always try to before investing a lot of time in developing a proposal, because you can spend an hour and a half on a proposal depending on obviously the complexity of the project that you have in front of you, but you can spend an hour and a half on a proposal, and that's additional time on top of the initial client consultation. So now what happens is you're investing more time into this proposal, and the client really hasn't invested anything in you yet. So they can take it or leave it, and now you feel like you have to kind of make this work somehow. So you're kind of end up shooting yourself in the foot because you've already spent time with the client. You wrote out this proposal, and you're desperate to make it happen.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
So that's the bad thing about not bringing up price in your initial conversation. Once you have all the information, start gauging, those what the price parameters might be.
Yeah, so you sit down, you write the proposal, you're all invested in it, you've got the money spent, you're thinking about what you're gonna buy, you're thinking, and now you're thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't lose this job. I've already got a payment that I'm gonna send in on my car or my house or whatever. Right. So you're like, well, I better go low, then that way everybody's cool. So let's back up just a little bit. We're gonna back up to the stage where the artist is on the phone, and we're going to talk about maybe how things should have gone. So I'll pretend that we're just picking up the phone, and maybe you can kind of clue me in. So I'm talking to my client. I say, okay, here's the project that you've got in mind. Here are some great ideas I think that I can offer you. Here are some services that I've done. Here's some stuff that I've done in the past. And now we get to the point where we need to talk about price. How does that go? What do I say? I'm in a panic, Carlos. Help me out, man.
Well, depending on the scope of the project, you and I have been involved in projects where it's just a simple illustration, and some that are more complicated, and the client requires more things, and you're able to unearth a lot of different possibilities for your working relationship as far as the kind of things that they need, and maybe even things that they didn't know they needed. That you bring to the table once you've had the opportunity to ask the right questions and talk to them, and you realize there's other areas that they might need help that also support the goals which they came to you with. So I think it's really important that you really drill deep and ask all the questions of your client to make sure that you get a full scope of what they're what they need, and how you can best support them in what they're trying to do. So only at that point can you really that I start talking about price. And usually I'll try to gauge them to see what kind of price they have. So typically what you'll do is offer them a range is what I do. Before I move deeper into it, because I want to see is it maybe it's between $3,000 and $5,000 or $7,000 and $9,000. You have to have a clear idea of what your time is worth and how much what you're talking about delivering to them is going to take. So when you're talking to somebody, do you tell them, hey, this is what I charge, or do you say, do you have a budget in mind, or I mean, how are you approaching this? It depends. It depends. If it's if it's a mascot, for example,
Mm-hmm.
some kind of an icon for their company,
Yeah.
I just have a flat fee that I charge, and I just this is what I charge for this.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
if it's more than that, like the project that we were working together on a while back, there were other elements that were involved. So then we kind of negotiate those, and we kind of figure out, okay, I never once with that client asked them what they had budgeted, because I was talking to the owner and I knew that he makes his own budget. So basically, once we clarify the value of what I'm delivering, and he understands how what I deliver plays into his objectives for his business, what he's trying to do, I didn't really worry too much about a budget. I felt that if I can sell the value of what I'm doing, he's going to pay, whatever I was going to whatever I was going to ask for, he was going to pretty much pay it, because he was wanting to work with me at that point. He felt the trust was there, and he felt like he was going to get the value that he needed.
Okay, so you guys sort of have a collaborative thing going on where he calls you up and he says, "Hey, Carlos, I need you to rework my logo or to do a mascot for me." You say, "Okay, well, my mascot price is this," and then I think if we start to talk a little bit more about what your needs are, maybe you might be interested in doing some additional poses. Those will go for like that much money.
Yeah, and with him, I'd worked with him previously. What was it, like 10 years ago, whatever it is, to design the initial mascot. So I had an idea of what I charged back then. And I just brought it to today's rates, and and it actually gave him a little bit of a break, because we were just taking a character. We're not reinventing the character necessarily, just bringing him more up to date. So there were some different parameters there, but depending on the scope of the project, if it's something that's like designers and stuff, they'll have to come up with a range, because usually designers have like a lot of different things that are involved in the projects that they're doing. If you're an illustrator, typically it's just one or two illustrations, or it's easier to just price out in your head. But the important thing is that you drive home the value of what you're doing and figure out how position yourself as the right person for this client. And once you've done that, then you can go ahead and just either, depending on the project, again, just tell them your fee is going to be a range, and it can't be too far. You can't say it's going to be between $2,000 and $10,000, because that doesn't help.
It'll be somewhere in there. Yeah, we haven't quite decided yet.
That's not helpful. But if it's 3 to 5, 4 to 5, 4 to 6, whatever it happens to be. A realistic range, that accounts for different variances in what the scope of the project might have. Another, if client says, well, how much is it going to cost? Something else that a lot of clients, a lot of freelancers and designers say is, it depends. For illustration, for example, it depends on the scope of how they're going to use the illustration. A lot of illustration is priced based on usage. For example, a lot of people base their prices on usage. So is it for an advertising campaign? Is it going to be national? Is it going to be regional? Obviously, the bigger the scope, the more it's going to cost. And there are no hard numbers on what an illustration is going to cost regionally versus something that's going to go nationally. That's something that you kind of pick a number and figure it out. I mean, there's again, even if you look at the Graphic Artists Guild pricing guide, there are large ranges in there. So
yeah, and it depends a lot on your experience level, what you can bring to the table, and then also the complexity of what the client is asking for. So if they're asking for something that is 1,000 different characters all crammed into a 18 by 24 inch poster, that's going to be a lot more work, and it's going to take you a lot more time. So you have to kind of figure that into your price when you quote your price. And also, like you were saying, what other kind of value can you bring to this client to kind of help that client out and to solve their problems? And we were talking about this before the show too. Is the more value you can bring, the more you're worth, and the more the client is going to like what you're doing for them. So your value goes up as you solve more problems.
Right. Yeah, and what we talked about too is having a really good understanding of what you do and what kind of problems you're solving for your clients, because it depends on your clientele. I mean, if you're doing magazine illustration, the problems that you're solving for an art director or an art buyer there are different than if you're doing work, mascot work for small to medium or large size businesses. They're looking for different things. So the questions you need to be asking are different. Their objectives are different. The value proposition of what you're creating for them also has a different tangibility. I mean, if someone's using it for marketing, obviously, they're going to invest X amount of dollars. They don't see it as a cost so much as they do possibly as an investment. Like, for example, the mascots that we did, I always spoke in terms of investment with the client because it's a tangible piece of, it's a tangible marketing tool that they can use to increase better communication with their prospects and their clients versus just being an editorial illustration.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
There's a big difference there. So it really kind of just depends on having a good understanding of who your clients are and what they're looking to get out of the working relationship with you. I've found that a lot of times with even like book publishers, educational book publishers, although they have a particular style in mind, one of the reasons that when I was working with those book publishers, I was quite successful in getting higher rates was because I had a really keen understanding of their needs. If you've ever worked with editorial book publishers, for example, they're very sensitive about like how minorities look or ethnicities, how you depict ethnicities.
Right.
And I had a really good understanding of that, and I was very sensitive to the way I depicted them, and had enough years working with them where it was kind of seamless. I mean, I would do a lot of sketches, and honestly, I mean, 95% of the time, most of them would come back with just minor changes, if any. So clients like that about working with me. So I was able to charge more because I knew that a lot of illustrators that they worked with, a lot of times they would drop off, they wouldn't stay in communication with them, and they'd get nervous about that. If they give somebody 20 illustrations for a book,
they just disappear until the last day. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you've got a month and a half to work on it, and you kind of disappear, and you're not staying in touch with them. They get nervous about that stuff.
Sure.
And like you being on both sides of the fence there, hiring illustrators and hiring artists and also working as an artist, you become sensitive to that. You don't want people dropping off. You want people, giving you updates, letting you know that they're on top of it, where they are. Because, you've got as an art buyer, you're working on a bunch of different things. You can't just be concentrating on that one job. You're juggling several jobs. So it's, your value proposition there is, yes, the artwork and the communication skills that are required to be able to communicate effectively with the client about the project, but also the intangibles of making them feel comfortable working with you and making them want to work with you because it's going to make their job easier. So all that has value. So it's really understanding what you're delivering to the client and what they really need.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I bring this up every once in a while with you when we're talking. One of my favorite podcasts is called I Love Marketing, and they talk a lot about the before, during, and after process of selling your artwork. And so I guess what we're getting into today is the before and during, right? So being present and giving the buyer a good positive experience goes a long way towards justifying the cost that you're going to be charging. We're kind of getting close to the edge of our time together today, and these are some things that I think are really valuable, and maybe we can get into a little bit more later on. You and I had talked about this several times on the show about this pricing thing that we're playing with, and this is something I think I'd like to really get into a little bit deeper. So I don't want to open up another can of worms today.
Yeah, there's just, with the whole pricing conversation, a lot of people think it's just, I usually get emails with
how much should I charge, right?
How much should I charge for this? Well, who the hell knows? I mean, it's you can't. There is no fixed number, and I think people are looking for a fixed number for something. How much does an illustration cost? How much does this cost? And you don't know, and really depends on you. And clients are looking for that magic number as well. So it's really, really important for you to understand. And I think a lot of artists don't know the value of their artwork, which is why they kind of are iffy on the price, because they themselves don't understand, or they themselves feel like their work really has a diminished value in the marketplace. There's so many artists out there producing work, and well, what's mine worth if they can just go out, they can go out and get 50 people quoting on this, the same kind of thing, more or less. So a lot of artists, I think, don't understand their own value of the illustration stuff, the illustration work that they put in the marketplace. And it's because they're looking solely at just the technical aspect of being a hired hand to do something, versus looking at the other values that potential clients put value on.
Right. So
time,
understanding
efficiency, communication, all those different things, and it's up to you when you're in that conversation with that client to get those things across. That you're just not another illustrator. You're there to solve problems. You're there to ask questions. It's not about tooting your own horn at that point. It's about asking questions, making them feel comfortable that you have a clear understanding of their business, what they're trying to achieve, and how you can help them do that.
Right, and so you can kind of equate this to like going to a restaurant. So if you want to go to the cheapest restaurant you can find, you're not going to get as much service. So let's say you're going to McDonald's or something. You have to go up to the counter. You have to buy your food. You got to bring it to the table. The food's not the greatest in the world. Now, hey, I'm not picking on McDonald's, but I'm just saying, if you go to a higher end restaurant, you can expect more service. So you're going to expect a better quality interaction with that particular restaurant. So if you think of yourself as a restaurant, what are you presenting to your client? Are you presenting McDonald's, or are you presenting Ruth Chris Steakhouse? So what are you bringing to the table that makes the experience with you more valuable? What kind of things can you present to that client as you're talking with them on the phone and trying to sell your services that makes them say, hey, you know what? I think it would be way better for me to go with an experienced guy versus hopping onto a site where, like a freelance.com, where I can get the lowest bid. Right. What is more valuable about what you're providing than what they're going to get from that lowest bid site? So that's where the value comes in, and that's why it's hard to say how much do I charge, because it's impossible for us to know without interacting with you, what are you bringing to the table. So if you say, how much do I charge, I could say $10, because if I go over to freelance.com, I can get a guy to do it for $10. But if you tell me, hey, you know what, I'm going to bring this much to the table, then I can say, well, your price can go a little bit higher now, because you're giving that client a better interaction, a better service, a better result when they're done. And that's another thing I think a lot of times is, art directors have a better feel for that than people who haven't bought an art before. So they know, if they understand when they call you that they can expect a better service from you. But if you're talking with somebody who's buying art for the first time, I think it's important to try to convey why would they go with you? Why are they going to buy a Mercedes versus buying the Yugo? And I know I use that one a lot, but but that's really what we're getting at here. Are you a Mercedes or are you a Yugo?
And this is where it gives you the opportunity also. I mean, getting back to the initial question in this discussion, this is where it gives you the opportunity to figure out if that client's right for you or not. Because not everybody that calls you need to be working with.
Right.
It's up to you to pick the right clients that are going to pay the right fees, they're going to do the kind of work that you're willing to do. So this is your opportunity to look for any red flags, look for, start feeling out this potential client to see if they're even someone that's looking for to create a working relationship and values what you're doing and values what they're working on, or are they just looking for just something cheap and fast? If that's the case, then you can either choose to work with them or not. But I try to find that out quickly as quickly as I can before I invest too much time. I want to know about the project, but I'm also listening for little red flags or little hints of how they've worked before with other people, if they're looking for lower price all the time. Getting back to what we were talking about before. I mean, something else that we were talking about this. What was it? Yesterday, the day before yesterday, about our agency experience, when a lot of agencies would actually call several people and wouldn't necessarily give you a budget, but they would, they'd be calling, maybe 3 or 4 people on a project, and everybody's giving their prices. So, in a situation like that, where maybe, they're maybe looking at other alternatives and they don't have a budget in mind, you can always say, well, I know that you're doing some research and you've got a couple of quotes that you're pulling in. What do you expect to pay for something like what we've discussed? So then that kind of, you put the ball back in their court, and they can maybe throw back a ballpark figure back at you at that point. So there's little things that you can do to kind of try to just get as much information as you can. To answer the question for the reader that sent the email in, I mean, at this point, hopefully through the conversation, even though you didn't discuss price or ballpark figure, at least hopefully through the conversation, you were able to get a sense if this is someone who just wants a quick, cheap fix, or someone who's willing to pay for services. And that depends on how they run their own business, the kind of business they're in, the kind of things they're doing. If they're involved in other marketing things that require investment, chances are they're willing to pay for your service, a fair fee for your service as well. So I mean, at that point, I think it's probably a good thing to just give a ballpark figure on. Don't go crazy with the different packages, different alternatives that you're looking at. But maybe just a ballpark figure on 1 or 2 packages, and say, how does this look for you? How does this feel? Does it feel like it fits, what you had in mind? And still have an opportunity to kind of gauge it a little bit and still kind of fluctuate without being married to a specific price.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. And there's something else I think we'll talk about on next time we visit this, is sort of getting a system in place. And one of the things that I really liked that you did with your client was you had a thing that you called the logo. What was it? I wanted to call it a questionnaire, but you said you have a different name for it.
Right. Yeah, I can't even remember what the hell I call it.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
I'll look for it.
But what basically what it is sort of a list of pre-written questions that you have that you can you can have at the ready when you start to talk to that client. And you want to review, the things that you need to learn from them, which is, about their business and all that kind of stuff. And I was inspired by you, so I put together one too. So when a client calls me now, I have an idea of the things that I need to ask them, so that as we get into the conversation, I don't skip over things. Oh, geez, I forgot to ask that, or I forgot to ask this. So it's nice to have that. I've got it on Evernote here, so when I get the phone call, I just pop open Evernote, I take a look at it, try to cover those things. And then, if we want to go a little bit more formal, you can have the client actually fill out the questions, or you can go through them one at a time and fill them out together. I like filling them out together because it's a little more organic and you can kind of get a little more give and take. But, as long as you got a system in place there, things I think are going to work out a little bit better for you. But we'll get into that, I think, like I said, on another show.
Yeah, and I call it the brief. Like the
brief,
logo
brief.
Yeah. And actually, I didn't make that up. I stole that from designers, because I think designers kind of refer to it in that context.
Yeah. Well, now I'm stealing it from you.
And I think the reason I chose that was because it makes it sound more complete.
Yeah.
Typically as illustrators, we don't have, our jobs aren't that complicated. We don't have a bunch of different elements to juggle like designers do. Right. So when there's a lot of information that they need to take in, especially if you're a web designer, print designer, whatever it is. There's a lot of different information that they need to take in and account for. So a lot of them create this long brief, and I created the same thing, but for illustration. Mm-hmm. So it's not more drawn out than it needs to be, but it's not a simple like, okay, I need a cowboy riding a horse illustration, and there you have it. So it goes a little deeper. It gives them the sense that, and the real reason here is that part of getting what you want in pricing, I found, and this is more like a psychological thing that I've studied. In pricing, the more you're able to get a potential client to invest time in researching you, the more apt they are to hire you. So in other words, when you're looking for a TV or you're looking for someone to provide a service, the more time that you're spending with that one person looking into what they do, answering questions, and looking, just investigating them deeper, by the time you're ready to make a decision, you say to yourself, well, I've already invested X amount of time with this guy. I might as well go with him. I mean, I've spent most of my time researching him. So let's just go with this guy. So that's what I try to do with that, is try to answer a lot of questions for the client to be clear on what they want and what maybe they don't know they want yet, so that I can touch on those and maybe increase the scope of the project, but also to get them to invest more time in dealing with me. Because that time,
well, because you're building a level of trust here.
Absolutely, you're building trust, and you're building that commitment level. They're more committed to you the more time they spend with you and talking to you and communicating with you.
Yeah, because now because that gives you an opportunity to get to know them a little bit, to start to talk a little bit about the services that you can provide. That you start to like I said, you build the trust, but you're providing things for them that they may not see the first time they visit your website or the first time they look at your artwork or whatever. So you're building a relationship with them, and I think that's important. So yeah. So okay, well we're at our time limit now, Carlos. So let's wrap up for today, and we'll jump back into this issue again. Next time we get together.
Yeah. If you guys, again, if you have any question regarding show today, just write a comment or send me an email at carlos@drawnbysuccess.com. And the pricing thing is an area where people think it's kind of a simple fix, but the pricing can actually be a really, really kind of deep, informative area that can make a huge difference in your business. You could literally double your business if you get your pricing thing right, and you can make some little tweaks here and there. There's a lot of areas in pricing that you can fix. We've covered a couple of them today, where if you just implement one area, it can make a difference in presenting proposals and getting proposals accepted at a higher price point. So it's really deep. There's a lot of psychological stuff attached to pricing as well, because we all have fears about the pricing and everything like that. But yeah, the pricing thing can make a really huge difference in your business.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why you're not landing these clients and stuff, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that you can do to improve your chances of bringing those jobs in. So I got a couple of things I wanted to talk about today, Carlos, before we sign off. So the first is that so the first is that I've got a new course coming out over on the teaching site, bobteachesart.com. I'm going to be putting that in the queue, I think, in the next week or so. Also, I think I mentioned it during the last show, I'm heading out to Charlotte to do a presentation for the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. I'm looking for guest bloggers who would like to write about an experience that they've had either going to an event or making a presentation at the event. And if you want to do that, you can come find me at bobostrom.com, and I'd love to hear from you. I want to get some different perspectives on what it's like to be a participant or to be a faculty member of one of these shows. So,
excellent.
Yeah, so that's it for me this time.
Cool. Well, how are they going to get in touch with you?
Well, okay, so if they go over to the Bob Ostrom site, you can either leave a comment on the blog and say, hey, I want to do a blog post with you, or you can just use the content or the contact form over there. That'll get you there just as fast. So bobostrom.com is where I'm doing that one.
Okay, cool. Very good. All right, well, there you have it. Get in touch with Bob, let him know. And email me if you have any questions regarding today's show or last week's show. Or if you want to see something, a topic covered that we haven't discussed yet that you're dealing with personally, and we'd be happy to maybe even get you on and talk about it. So until next week, This is Carlos Castellanos, co-creator of the Baldo comic strip and freelance artist. Ching.
Oh wait, we can't.
And founder of DrawnBySuccess.com.
I'm sorry, Carlos. I know that was a good wrap up and everything, but we can't sign off yet. I've got one more thing I need to do.
Oh, one more thing.
We have Kelly Phillips coming on next week.
Oh, Kelly Phillips.
Kelly Phillips is going to come talk with us next week. You guys are going to love her. She was an instructor of mine over at Wake Tech who taught me about WordPress. So we're going to talk to her next week and do a little interview with her.
And what are we going to be talking about?
Well, I think we're going to be talking mostly about how she got started doing what she did. She walked away from a huge corporate job and started her own gig. And so I want to talk to her a little bit about that, what it was that compelled her to do that, and what it was like leaving, that security of such a big job that she left. So I think that's going to be kind of cool. I'm really looking forward to that. So you got anybody who's thinking about, do I leave my job and start my life as a freelance guy? How do I do it? I think these guys are going to be interested in that one. So you're not going to want to.
Yeah, and that's not just a freelance situation. I mean, she created a business.
She's got a business
around her interests and her knowledge base. So this is what Drawn by Success is all about, because we want to get you out of this mindset of just being an artist or something. There's nothing wrong with that, but we want you to, if there's more that you want to do and more that you want to achieve, there's, how to marry that, how to marry your interest with a business and create something new that you can actually make a real business out of and make a really nice income and help people in the process and really do what you love. So, I mean, that's what Drawn by Success is all about.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that she's going to be an excellent example of that. So, I'm really looking forward to having her on. So, that's for next week. So you're not going to want to miss that. So,
all right, we'll send out an email reminding you guys of that conversation, and so you can watch it. And if you're not a subscriber of Drawn by Success already, go to DrawnBySuccess.com, become a subscriber, so you don't miss anything with the updates, all the different things that we've got planned that we're going to be rolling out. Okay, so I think that does it, right, Bob?
Yeah, we do send out secret little emails to our subscribers every once in a while, so you're not going to want to miss those.
Insider information.
Yeah, that other people just aren't going to
decoder ring.
The decoder ring. We send them out in code. We make you guys work for it. All right, Carlos. Well, that'll do it then.
Well, there you have it. Implement one of these things, and if not, I hope you just enjoyed the show while you're working. I know a lot of people just like listening while they're working on stuff. So, but try to implement at least one of those.
Yeah,
it'll really help you. So, see you next week. All right, Bob. Thanks again, buddy. It's nice getting together with you on another Friday.
Yes, Carlos, as always. Yeah, I'll see you next week.
And we didn't even hear the trucks, like demolishing the house across the street or.
They're out there. They're out there. I've got the good mic today, so we didn't have to worry about that. So.
Well, just make sure they have their addresses correct, so they're not start tearing down your house instead.
Well, maybe they'll pour a new driveway for me. Who knows? Put a new pool in my backyard.
Oh, there you go. That'd be nice. Invite me over. Let me know what happens.
I will. Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you next Friday. Again, get back in touch with me, Carlos at DrawnBySuccess.com, if you have any questions or any comments. All right, later, guys. Bye, Bob.
See you, Carlos.